Psalm 46. For the choir director, a psalm of the sons of Korah, set to Alamoth, a song. That could possibly mean set for soprano voices. So, I don't know for sure. But God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear though the earth should change, though the mountains should slip into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though its mountains quake at its swelling pride. Selah. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy dwelling places of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She will not be moved. God will help her when morning dawns. The nations made an uproar. The kingdoms tottered. He raised his voice. The earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our stronghold. Selah. Come, behold the works of the Lord. Who has wrought desolations in the earth? He makes wars to cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and cuts the spear in two. He burns the chariots with fire. Cease striving and know that I am God. And I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our stronghold. Selah. This is probably one of my favorite psalms. There's a lot in this one that you've probably sung in a song or memorized. Psalm 46:10 in the King James says, "Be still and know that I am God." The correct version. But it's on the back of her shirt. That's right. So, be still and know that I'm God. And, when you look at this psalm, you think, did the author just make up situations that had happened? Or was he just kind of projecting out there, even if the whole world fell apart, we can still trust in God? And you could probably make some claim for that. I'm sure that there were earthquakes. I'm sure that they had tsunamis and natural disasters and all that kind of stuff. But I really think that this right here is very appropriate for us today. We live in a very difficult time. And I think especially for the people in Israel, God is their God. If they're his people, God is their God. And he is their present help in their time of need. And they don't need to trust in men. They may make a covenant with other nations, and that those other nations will probably break it. But they need to trust in God, and God has been their help. God has been our help. Think about how many times the Lord has helped us. When you've been at your end, and everything is falling apart, and you call out to the Lord, and he answers. The Lord, God, is our refuge and strength. A very present help in trouble. Unlike the rest of the gods that people worship in this world, God hears us, and he's present with us. We don't have to take him in our pocket. He doesn't sit on a shelf. He is God of all the world. He stands outside of creation, and he's in all of it, and he hears and he answers. And even for those people who are in the middle of war-torn zones, when they call out to God for help, he hears them and he answers. The Lord helps. Even I can remember stories just not too long ago. We had this big earthquake over in Turkey that had a lot of damage, and a lot of people were injured and killed. But even after a week had gone by, they were unearthing children who had been trapped in the rubble, and the children would tell stories of a man who would come and occasionally bring them food and water, and to the bewilderment of everybody else, because it's like, how did he get in here? There's no way anybody could have came in here and given you anything to survive. And that's the Lord. The Lord showing up and helping those people in that time of need so that they could survive through it and tell of what he did. So that's, we have to look at that. God is our present help. So just take into consideration everything going on in the world. Take into consideration everything going on in your life. Should we fear? God has it under control. He knows our situations. He knows what we're dealing with health-wise, stress-wise, relationships-wise, in our country, in our nation, in our world. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth should change, though the mountains slip into the heart of the sea. If we had a tsunami that wiped out all the way up to where we're at, 50 miles inland, should we fear? I mean, it's an awesome sight, fearful sight to see that, and I wouldn't want to see it happen. Is God still God? Absolutely. We know the book of Revelation says there's going to be some events happen where the mountains fade away. The islands fade away. The mountains are no more. They just basically crumble. Even if that was to occur today and those prophecies are fulfilled, we can still trust in the Lord. One, because God told us it was going to happen. And two, because He's God. He's got this under control. The world is only going to do what the Lord wants it to in its time and at the right place to fulfill what He had written for it to do. We can trust God. And honestly, if we cease from this place, we'll wake up in His arms. We'll be with the Lord, and that's better by far. So, just putting it into perspective. Though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains quake at its swelling pride, we will not fear. I know people who are looking for anything to look at and go, oh, we don't need to go anywhere. We don't need to go outside. We need to stay away from it. And they're controlled by fear and anxiety. Even, this was really highlighted during COVID. There were many people who gripped onto fear. And they let fear make their decisions. And there are many people who allowed fear to make their decisions during that time frame who are still allowing fear to make their decisions. I can't tell you how many people I see wearing masks. I'm like, it's 3 years later. If you were going to get it, you would have got it. You know, it's a mindset. You know, are you going to go outside in fear, or are you going to go outside in freedom? And really, anything could happen on your normal average every day. You could walk outside on this beautiful sunny day, and something could fall off an airplane and hit you. Okay, but is that going to stop you from going outside? What's the likelihood of that? It's very unlikely. You know, you could walk through a forest and a tree could fall down and kill you. Is that going to happen? Probably not. But I'm sure it has. You know, you can't let the fear of the unknown and unexplainable and just the odd things that might occur, you can't let that happen. You can't let that control you. I mean, you can't do anything about what happens, but you can't let that control you. We shouldn't allow fear to control us. It doesn't matter if the whole world falls apart around us. We shouldn't allow fear to control us. But it's so easy, and there are many who want to in the name of helping us, push things that will take advantage of our fears so that we'll participate in it, whether it be a vaccine or drugs or medicine or tests or whatever it is. And it seems good, but what are we trusting in? Our health is going to deteriorate one day. I was looking in the bathroom over here just a few minutes ago, and my hair's gray. Grayer than it was. It's not as gray as your guys', but the bathroom... Yeah, give it a little time. Maybe it's just a light in that restroom, but it's like, man, I got a gray hair.
You could live with Jason and be falling out instead of Tony Blaine.
That's right. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy dwelling places of the Most High. Where is this river? Do you know in the millennium there'll be a river that comes out of the temple? It will make glad the city of God. I think this author is actually being prophetic. Look, the whole world's going to fall apart one day. And even in the middle of that, we don't need to fear. Because what we're looking forward to is the Lord setting up His kingdom and reigning. God will be in the midst of her and we shall not be moved. We don't have to worry about that. Bring it on. Let the world collapse. That just means Jesus is coming. And we can trust that He knows what He's doing in His times. The nations made an uproar and the kingdoms tottered. What is He doing right? What's going on right now? The nations are in uproar. They're fighting against each other. They're manufacturing wars. And I mean, now we find out that the hospital actually wasn't bombed in Gaza. It was a parking garage, parking lot. And nobody died. But you probably won't hear that. The only thing you're going to hear about is that there was a hospital that blew up and 1,000 people died. Well, what is truth? I mean, are we listening to truth, or are we just listening to the loudest talking head? I think we need to be patient when we hear things. Pray, be patient, but recognize the nations are in an uproar. Satan knows his time is short. He's trying to destroy as much as possible. We should not fear. We don't have to fear that the nations are in an uproar. Yeah, they want to bring in the draft again and take kids and send them off to war. Do we need to participate with that? No. It'd be better for them to be in jail than it would be to be in a war. They'd at least be a little safer there if that's what it came down to. So you have to just put it in perspective. This author of this is putting it into perspective. God is our refuge and strength. Even in the midst of all the difficulties we face, he's our refuge and strength. And one day he's going to be in the middle of this world. The nations are in an uproar, and God raised his voice and the earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our stronghold. I think for the children of Israel right now, what they need to be doing is not trusting in the Iron Dome or whatever it is that they're putting their trust in as far as advanced weapon systems. And they got some really advanced weapon systems. What they need to be doing is putting their trust in God, because God can confuse the enemies and make them fight it themselves. And you have story after story in the Bible of that. It's not just a story. This is actual history. And if they would simply honor the Lord and trust him, he will deliver them. But for now, they're trusting in everything that they can other than God. And God will slowly remove all of that from them so that they can learn to trust him again. We don't need the bigger gun. We got God. He's bigger than any guns. Should we protect ourselves as best we can? I would say yes, we should, and it behooves us to do that. But ultimately, our trust is not in our weaponry. Our trust is in God. God is our stronghold. Come, behold the works of the Lord. Look at all of creation. It's magnificent. And then it says, who has wrought desolations in the earth? Okay, so who is behind this world falling to pieces to prepare for the return of Christ?
The devil. Satan's behind it.
Sure, he's got his hand in it, but who's controlling all of this?
Oh, the
God.
God. But yeah, God's controlling it.
God is. Who's the one who's going to bring desolation to this world? God will. God's the one who's going to make the islands flee away. God's the one who's going to make the mountains crumble. The Lord is the one who sends a asteroid or whatever it is into the ocean, and it causes all this death. I mean, you read Revelation. God's the one who's behind all that. He's the one who pours out his wrath.
I misunderstood.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, but it's a good answer. But Satan is behind it, but he can't do anything that God doesn't allow him.
Allow him to do.
I mean, just take for example Job. God says, "Have you considered Job?" The next thing you know, his house collapses, kills his kids. You know, he loses all of his livestock, and he's sitting on an ash heap in sackcloth, scraping himself with pottery. Who was ultimately behind that? People have a problem with that, but God was behind that. You know, do we want to be tested like that? No, nobody wants that. But the Lord gives, the Lord takes, and Job was right in that. The Lord gives and the Lord takes. Blessed be the name of the Lord. He passed the test. I mean, ultimately, when we look at everything going on, the Lord brings that desolation on the earth to make the war cease. It's the only way He can do it. If you got two little kids who are fighting in the middle of a living room, what sometimes the only thing you can do is come in with a bigger stick and, you know, knock both of their heinies, you know, and say, okay, you need to stop. Now we're going to stop this now, you know. We're going to take care of this problem, and God takes care of the problem. He makes war to cease in the end of the earth. Since this author wrote that, war has not ceased. There's been war on this earth for thousands of years because men lust after things that are not there. They fight for what's not theirs. They want, they can't have. They take it anyways. And so one day the Lord is going to come. He's going to desolate this world. He's going to make it new. He's going to make wars to cease. He's going to break the bow, cut the spear in two, and burn the chariots with fire. Zechariah talks about that. They'll go throughout the land. They'll put a marker where they find a bone. They'll take the weapons and they'll burn it for fuel. And we just, you know what God says in response to that? Be still and know that I'm God. And oftentimes we don't even understand the context of that verse. We just take that verse because we like it. Or a verse because we like it. But its context is, it's just going to get really bad on this world. And the Lord's going to tear it down and clean it back up. And we just need to stop striving. Just stop. Stop and know that He is God. The nations are enraged because they do not recognize that God is. And if they recognize that God is, they want to fight Him. Just stop. Just stop and recognize that God is God. And He says, I will be exalted in the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. When Jesus returns, the nations will mourn because of Christ's coming. But every knee will bow. Every tongue will confess that Jesus is Lord. And at that point, we can say, the Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our stronghold. We can say that now. He's literally with us, but he'll physically be with us in that time frame. And there will be no more wars. The Lord is there, and he's taking care of the problems. The whole world is going to collapse, but we can trust in the Lord. This is a good thing. A very present help in our time of trouble. The Lord is there. And we should never fear. We should never fear. It's hard to do that, though, when you see everything running around the world right now. You know, it's hard. It's really, really hard.